This is Pulse 95.
Pulse 95.
It's the Morning Majlis.
It's the Morning Majlis.
Talking the stories that are shaping headlines, plus those that make you go,
Hi everybody, good morning. Welcome to the Morning Majlis, the show where we talk about news stories shaping the headlines. It's me, Ahmed Dawood, with Rania Sadi, and we have so much to get to this morning. Pretty packed show, and Rania, what's good? Lots happening in Sharjah here.
Absolutely. First of all, happy Wednesday to everyone,
Yes.
to all the listeners out there. Hope everyone is having a safe commute and enjoying the weather. It's about 28 degrees outside.
It's breezy, nice and
love
cool
it.
winds, finally.
We're getting closer.
We're getting there.
closer. Yeah, we're getting closer to a winter, which is always happy news for us. But today we have a lot to discuss on the show. This hour, we're going to talk about the latest construction projects here in the Emirate, because Arada has just announced the latest on Al Jada's Phase 2 infrastructure works. It's in a mixed-use community that is worth 24 billion dirhams. So more details will be discussed this hour on this project.
Right, that's right, Rania. And we're also going to delve into some international stories as well. We've got a story that is taking place in Kyrgyzstan following the elections, a disputed election resulting in mass protests. And the results have been annulled, so there's so much to go through here. What is happening? Why are people protesting another election? And what are the authorities in Kyrgyzstan doing about this? Stay tuned for that story. Plus, the latest on Nobel Prize coverage. The Physics Prize award is in, and it's a breakthrough in black holes. This is incredibly interesting. If you're into science, this is one you need to stay tuned to. What are black holes, and what did these scientists do? And how has our understanding of black holes furthered our knowledge of the way things operate in outer space and here on planet Earth? So stay tuned for that. Plus, we're going to give you the latest from the meeting, the Sharjah Executive Council meeting. What have they discussed as far as Sharjah's affairs? How is this expected to change our lives for the better?
Absolutely. We're going to discuss all of that up next. So stay tuned with us only on
Pulse 95.
Pulse 95.
The Morning Majlis. Talking the stories that are shaping headlines. This is Pulse 95.
The text lines are open, 4215. We'd like you to join this conversation with us here as we talk about the mental health impact of COVID-19. And the reason we're talking about this is this study came out and said that the COVID-19 pandemic is causing a sharp rise in depression and anxiety, even in countries with low rates of infection. The research found increased rates of depression and anxiety in Australia in the early days of the outbreak. They say it's because of related money worries and disruption to social lives.
Yeah, the study actually found that countries with the most successful responses to quashing infections could have overlooked the effects on citizens' mental health. And researchers also surveyed almost about 1,300 Australian adults back in March, just after federal and state governments closed restaurants and entities, limited social gatherings as well, and imposed border restrictions, as we know. And it found that of the 36 people who tested positive for COVID-19 or were closely linked to someone who had, none experienced a negative effect on their mental health. But those whose work and social life were disrupted by lockdown were linked to symptoms of anxiety and depression, although working from home was not linked to any negative effects. So that is the findings, or those are the findings of that study so far.
Yeah, and what's concerning as well is that they found higher rates of mental health problems, especially among younger people, women, and those with existing medical conditions. And those who conducted the research said it's important that governments and policymakers recognize that minimizing social and financial disruption should also be a central goal of public health policy. Meanwhile, services for mentally ill patients have been disrupted around the world during COVID-19 pandemic. Access to psychologists and psychiatrists, for instance, has been compromised, according to the World Health Organization. And only 7% of 134 countries responding to the World Health Organization's survey reported that all mental health services were fully open, with 93% saying that their mental health services were not operating the way they did prior to the pandemic. So that's another major point of concern here.
Definitely. Also, the survey, which was conducted from June till August, was published ahead of the WHO's big event for mental health that will be on October 10th. It's actually a global online event that will bring together world leaders, celebrities, and advocates on World Mental Health Day to call for increased investments after COVID-19. The pandemic is increasing demand for mental health services, with isolation, loss of income, and also fear causing mental health problems or exacerbating existing ones, really. COVID-19 also has led to neurological and mental complications such as delirium, agitation, and also many strokes. So it did have a toll on a lot of people.
It did, and the World Health Organization's Director General, Dr. Tedros, said that good mental health is absolutely fundamental to overall health and well-being, and called for world leaders to move quickly and decisively on this issue. And we've seen that. I mean, when the entire world changes within just a few weeks, and we're talking radical changes to your life, your livelihood, your income, your social life, you're isolating, you have an entirely different lifestyle that you put on. And mental health experts say that causes a great deal of stress when you have to tackle an unfamiliar environment and nobody around you has answers. Just a lot of questions, what ifs, and fears and anxieties that really just change everything. And looking at what people have been saying, even creative people who had initially seen this period of isolation as, hey, I'm going to have more time to myself, I'm going to make music maybe. They said they faced creative and emotional burnout during this period and really couldn't get anything done. People who didn't have as much access to their friends and family like they used to struggle to find a support system amid this time. Everybody's just so much more distanced. And the most important aspect as well is economy. When you have economic insecurity, that is deeply linked to depression, according to studies. And that's pretty much one of the driving reasons as to why people are suffering mentally during the pandemic.
You know, I have a friend of mine, a very close friend of mine. She was talking to me yesterday on the phone, and she's telling me, Rania, I can't sleep at night. And I say, oh, why? You drinking a lot of coffee, a lot of caffeine? And she's like, no, it's because of my anxiety. And I said, why? What's going on? And she's like, I keep, thinking that I might get COVID-19. And I said, okay. Why is this not making you sleep? I mean, stop thinking about it. She's like, I just can't. I have every time I feel like I have a headache, I have symptoms, I have this. And I'm like, are you doing anything wrong? And she's like, no. I'm like, why are you having anxiety then? And she's like, I don't know. I can't think. I can't sleep. I'm having anxiety. I'm taking sleeping pills. And I'm like, don't do this to yourself. Why are you doing this to yourself? So a lot of people, just the thought of them catching the virus causes them so much anxiety. They can't focus on their everyday activities in life. They can't sleep well. Their sleeping patterns are being affected. So it's always important to follow health ways to cope with your stress. For example, you have to take care of your emotional health before anything. Kind of isolate yourself from all the pandemic-related stories that might bring you stress and fear. If you know that you're that kind of a person that will get affected by it, because I mean, every time you hear like someone got affected, we're experiencing a second wave of infections, we're this, we're that. Okay, it's good to always be updated, but if this will cause you anxiety, stay away from this news. The minute you hear someone talking about it, just stay away from it if you know you cannot handle it. Yeah. And it will cause you so much stress. So, and in the end, if you will catch, God forbid, COVID-19, it is not the end of the world. There is still treatment. You can get over it, and there's so many people that thankfully survived it. So many of them. Yeah. And so little didn't.
Exactly,
so
precisely
always look
that.
At the bright side.
Looking at the bright side, adopting a more optimistic mindset. And it's the kind of discussion that you could spend hours having because of the so many aspects of our lives that have been affected. Even the return to school as well. There have been calls to have more mental health experts within schools as students start their return because they've gone through months of isolation in essence.
Right.
And for someone who's developing, that's got to have an impact of some sort.
Just do your part.
Yeah, you do
your part.
You
Wear your
absolutely
mask, your masks. Avoid social gatherings. Always maintain social distancing. Always sanitize everything around you, and that's it. That's it. Just do your job, do your part, and live your life. There's no need for someone, because there are studies that just I read yesterday, scientific studies that show the more you stress about COVID-19, the more you're prone to getting it. So it's all about mental health.
It is, and I think a big part of what you're talking about here deals with the feeling of helplessness that people have, and it's something that a lot of people are struggling to grapple with, our lack of control on the situation. This is happening around us. It is out of our control. I mean, yes, we can wear masks, practice the precautions, do our part, but whether or not we get it, every time we step out of the house, there's a certain risk we adopt.
Absolutely.
And a major element to depression, according to mental health experts, is the sense of helplessness and a struggle to deal with how not in control you are. And it spills into other areas, even beyond COVID-19. The sense of, I'm in charge of my own career. I want to accomplish this one day. I want to become rich. But you've grown up in a certain environment. You've been through a certain childhood. You have a college degree. You are more limited than you think you might be. And that's a part of depression that is not discussed very often. The fact that a lot of us don't embrace how helpless we are and how little control we really have. And it might be an unrealistic way of thinking, trying to have more control over a situation that is entirely out of our control.
Absolutely.
So that's definitely a big part of depression, and sad to see so many people go through that.
It's actually a soothing thought when you think about it. So, for example, for people who lose their jobs or who are afraid to lose their jobs, even if you did or you didn't, just the thought of you losing your job amid the pandemic and this situation, the soothing thought in this situation is that you're not alone. The whole world is suffering. The whole world is going through the same thing. So there's always this note in the back of someone's head saying, I'm not the only one that's suffering from this. The whole world is suffering from this. The best are suffering from this. So hopefully we'll all get up again and rise and shine again, and life will come back to normal soon.
Yeah, certainly.
And better,
definitely, inshallah. And World Health Organization, just another thing, because this is very important. They said that this has always been historically understudied, underexamined. Depression, it seems today it's more common than ever for people to say they're depressed, and especially younger people. And that's definitely a point of concern here. So to untangle the structural and economic reasons as to why that happens, why people strive for the things that they do, how that could lead to their unhappiness quite possibly, and just trying to have more control over things that you have no control over. Those are issues that are worth interrogating, but we don't have the time for that during today's show. But text us at 4215. Let us know what your views are on managing your mental health during the pandemic. How have you fared so far? What has the impact been on you? Let us know. Our text lines are open, 4215. And up next, we've got more stories lined up on today's program. The state of Hollywood and cinema amid COVID-19. What is happening? More movies have been postponed. Stay tuned for that to find out.
This is Pulse 95.
Pulse 95.
It's the Morning Majlis.
It's the Morning Majlis.
Welcome back onto the show, and we continue the talk about the Nobel Peace Prize of this year. Now, the Nobel Prize season begins every October as committees in Sweden and Norway name laureates in a variety of prizes in the sciences, literature, and economics, as well as peace work. And just on Monday, a trio of scientists won the 2020 Nobel Peace Prize, the Nobel Prize for Physiology or Medicine, for their joint discovery of the virus that causes hepatitis C. And the Nobel Committee cited the breakthrough as resulting in, quote, blood tests and new medicines that have saved millions of lives. But just yesterday, 3 other scientists have also been awarded the 2020 Nobel Prize in Physics for their work to understand black holes.
That's right. The Nobel Prize in Physics was awarded to 3 astrophysicists for work that was literally out of this world and even this universe. They are Roger Penrose, an Englishman, Reinhard Genzel, a German, and Andrea Ghez, an American. They were recognized for their work on the gateways to eternity, known as black holes, massive objects that swallow light and everything else forever that falls in their jaws. Dr. Penrose is a mathematician at Oxford University. He was awarded half of the approximately $1.1 million prize for proving that black holes must exist if Albert Einstein's theory of gravity, known as general relativity, is right. The second half was split between Dr. Genzel and Dr. Ghez for their relentless and decades-long investigation of the dark monster in the central of our galaxy, black holes, and they gathered evidence to confirm that. What's notable as well is that Dr. Ghez is only the fourth woman to ever win a Nobel Prize in physics, following Marie Curie in 1903, Maria Mayer in 1963, and Donna Strickland in 2018. She said, quote, "I'm so thrilled."
Yeah, and even a member of the Nobel Committee said the history of black holes goes way back in time to the end of the 18th century. Back then, through Einstein's general relativity, we had the tools to describe these objects for real. But the mathematics of black holes was incredibly complex. Many researchers believed they were nothing more than mathematical artifacts existing only on paper. So it took researchers decades to realize they could actually persist in the real world. That's what a member of the Nobel Committee said, Mr. Ulf Danielson. He said that's what Roger Penrose did. He understood the mathematics. He introduced new tools and then could actually prove this is a process you can naturally expect to happen, that a star collapses and turns into a black hole. That's it. He also explained people were very skeptical at the time. It took a long time before black holes were accepted. Their importance is, I think, only partially appreciated.
Yeah, and more on these winners as well, because it's pretty fascinating reading about the history of these discoveries and how it went about. So it goes back to Einstein's theory of relativity, which was first announced in 1915. And the theory explains the force that we now know as gravity. As objects try to follow a straight line through the universe, whose geometry is warped by matter and energy, planets as well as light beams start to follow curving paths, like balls moving around in a circle. And Einstein was taken aback when a German astronomer, Karl Schwarzschild, said that the equations that Einstein put together for relativity, for gravity, have a pretty scary prediction. He said, if you cram too much matter and energy inside too small of a space, that would cause space-time to collapse into a point of infinite density known as singularity. And Einstein just couldn't figure out the math. He was essentially stumped, but said, okay, nature will find a way to sort this out and avoid this type of situation. However, a decade after Einstein's death in 1965, that's where Dr. Penrose came in and did the work and found something else entirely. And he was born in 1931 to an intellectual family. He is a professor at the University of Oxford, a very talented mathematician. He invented a way of portraying space-time called the Penrose Diagram. His diagrams are now the language of cosmology, and Dr. Penrose was able to prove that if too much mass accumulated in a small space, it would collapse into a black hole. He said that would happen. And at the boundary of a black hole, it's called the event horizon. You would have to go faster than the speed of light in order to get away. Otherwise, you cannot escape the black hole. And he showed us that the black hole would become this gateway to the end of time, to the end of the universe, as space and time both collapse as well. Dr. Penrose is known for other scientific accomplishments. He discovered the Penrose tiles, a way of tiling on an infinite floor without repeating the pattern. He's also known for his revolutionary views on artificial intelligence and computation. And this is a major discovery. It's culminated in decades of work for Sir Roger Penrose. A bit of a sad news, however, and that's because he collaborated extensively with Stephen Hawking for his work on black holes, but the fact that Stephen Hawking is dead makes him ineligible for this Nobel Prize. So other scientists were mourning that Hawking was not present for this as well, but just worth mentioning his involvement in this as well.
Well, great work done. Well, we still have more winners to be announced.
Yeah.
We have the Nobel Prize in Chemistry will be announced today. The Nobel Prize in Literature will be announced tomorrow. And the Nobel Peace Prize finally will be announced on Friday in Norway. And a lot of bookmakers say, well, a climate-related Peace Prize indeed has a chance. For a lot of people, of course, are rooting for Greta Thunberg. Considered a favorite behind the WHO and also New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern. So they're the top contenders at the moment.
Yeah, they are, and that one's definitely going to be a big award to look into, one that is heavily shaped by the pandemic that we are going through at the moment, because all of those issues are related to one another. Your material conditions, your economic conditions, and how you manage a pandemic and conflicts as well, because a lot of the conflicts we're seeing in protests are driven in part by the economic collapse that has followed the pandemic as well. And to see world leaders step up during this time and call for cooperation to help one another survive this trying time, it's going to make it a very interesting Nobel Peace Prize. Let us know. Join us on text on the text lines 4215 and let us know who you would peg as a winner for the Nobel Peace Prize. There are a lot of options out there. You touched on Greta Thunberg as well, Rania. Also, the head of the WHO has been quite visible during these times.
You know what's going to be really interesting?
Yeah?
Next year's Nobel Prize. It's because of the coronavirus vaccine.
Oh, yeah.
So definitely it will be the 2021 Nobel Awards that will recognize a scientist who will hopefully discover the first proven COVID-19 vaccine or treatment. So
Fingers
it'll
crossed.
be interesting to see next year's contenders as well.
Certainly will be. And next hour, we're going to be actually talking about this in more detail. Coronavirus vaccines. The WHO's head has issued a statement saying it's going to be available at a certain time. What is he talking about? Is it going to get our hopes up again? Stay tuned for that and so much more right here on Pulse 95.
This is Pulse 95.
Pulse 95.
It's the Morning Majlis.
It's the Morning Majlis.
Hello, welcome back onto the program. What if I told you that there is a country out there that is paying its citizens money to have babies during the pandemic? Well, this country just happens to be, a country really dear to my heart. I really want to go there. Singapore. Singapore is offering a one-time payment to aspiring parents during the coronavirus pandemic. Now, the country's deputy prime minister said the incentive would help reassure people who face financial pressure and are worried about their jobs. So the Prime Minister said, we have received feedback that COVID-19 has caused some aspiring parents to postpone their parenthood plans. This is fully understandable, especially when they face uncertainty with their income. But the Prime Minister also said the payment would help parents with expenses, but he did not confirm how much would be paid out. Despite a largely successful public health response to the pandemic, Singapore's economy has been thrown into a deep recession, just like the rest of the world, really. But this initiative that's taken out by the government is something very unique, I believe.
Yeah, it is. And it's something that Singapore has been trying to address for quite some time. It's falling fertility rates.
Yeah.
And this isn't the first time Singapore tried to offer financial investment or incentives, to the population to encourage them to have babies. It still continues to have one of the lowest birth rates around the world. And this coincides with the GDP likely shrinking 12.6% in the second quarter this year compared to the same time in the previous year. This is the steepest drop on record, according to economists. And the fertility rate in Singapore now stands at 1.14 births per woman, according to its national statistics body. Only 3 countries have lower rates.
Yeah.
South Korea, the United States territory of Puerto Rico, and it's level with Hong Kong as well. And the amount of newly introduced payments has not been announced officially, but the government said they've been receiving feedback that COVID-19 has caused some aspiring parents to postpone their parenthood plans, according to the Deputy Prime Minister Heng Swee Keat. In a statement that was issued, he said this is fully understandable, especially when they face uncertainty with their income. Singapore is expected to contract by 6% this year. And over the years, Singapore's government has organized other matchmaking services, speed dating as well, in a mostly futile effort to encourage procreation in the country. And currently, its birth rate ranks 214th in the world in 2017 as well. And this is a problem that has struck that region in Asia as well. Japan, South Korea, Taiwan are struggling with the same thing. And why does this matter? Well, when you have less babies, you have a shrinking workforce, and they have a larger burden to take care of increasing costs. So this rising costs in relation to an ever smaller population or proportion of workers is creates a labor shortage in the country, which pretty much signals bad things for its economy.
Yeah, it's actually considered to be in the top 10 most expensive countries in the world. So no wonder why. But Singapore, has been struggling with its low childbirth rates, or lowest birth rates in the world ever since the 1980s. They even had public campaigns encouraging childbirth and a host of financial and tax incentives. It was just unable to stop its slump. And back in 2011, the government wrote in a report saying that, like many developed countries, Singapore's key population challenges are our low fertility and an aging population. So our aim is to achieve a sustainable population that supports both economic growth and social cohesion, so that Singapore remains vibrant and livable. So it's a great initiative. It will help their economy for sure if people started to respond to that.
And Singapore is also offering more sweeteners to the deal. So, for instance, they're offering more than $6,000 for each child, but they're further sweetening that up by offering you a one-time payment as well during the pandemic to encourage babies or encourage couples to have babies as well.
So I was looking through a list of fun facts about Singapore.
Let's get to it.
It's a country that I really love and I'm fascinated by. So here's some fun facts for you. All right, let's throw some out there. Chewing gum is actually banned in Singapore. Did you know that? Only those with medical prescription can chew gum.
They're very serious about littering.
They're very serious. They fine people. Actually, speaking of fining people, there's an actual law against not flushing the public toilet after using it in Singapore, and you will be fined 150 Singaporean dollars if you get caught.
Oh, goodness.
And speaking of toilets, Singapore is very passionate about its toilets. The government actually tabled a UN resolution to mark 19th of November as the World Toilet Day. And 2001, the World Toilet Organization came into being.
There's a World Toilet Organization.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it came into being in 2001. But more fun facts. Collectively, Singaporeans are the fastest pedestrians in the world, walking at a speed of about 6.15 kilometers per hour. And another fun fact, after New Zealand, Singapore is the easiest place across the globe to do business. And that is according to a business list published by the World Bank recently. Yeah. Also, you can find the national anthem of Singapore on the back of the Singaporean $1,000 note written in microtext. So the whole national anthem is written on a $1,000 note. That is so cool. You can actually sit and enjoy free movie screening 24/7 at the Changi Airport, their airport. You can watch them at Terminals 2 and 3 for 2D movies and Terminal 4 for 4D cinema for free, 24/7.
That is incredible.
That is so cool. What else? And it's actually, Singapore is considered to be the least corrupt city in Asia and the 5th least corrupt in the world.
It's an incredibly fascinating place, and one that probably for a lot of visitors is pretty tough to tackle because of how strict it is as far as the authorities imposing fines for violators who do things that in other countries might seem trivial, but in Singapore they're taken very seriously. You could get a $500 fine just for spitting, for instance, on the floor, or littering. You throw a can of soda, that might land you in a court with a $500 fine as well. So it's a strict society, but that's how it stays or maintains that reputation as one of the cleanest places around the world, and a place that blends cosmopolitan living with that rich cultural heritage as well.
Well, that's another travel idea for some people out there who want to travel. If they have if they want to travel and they're thinking about where to go, Singapore is probably the place.
And speaking of travel,
next we'll be talking about Air Arabia offering free medical coverage for COVID-19. So we're going to talk about what's being covered, how to claim it, all news coming out from Air Arabia. So stay tuned with us.
If you liked this episode of the Morning Majlis, drop a like and subscribe.
95.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram for all our daily updates and top stories.
Pulse.